In the last video of Thibaut's Creative Junkyard.
None of us are really free. We have started to see ourselves as a project. We've started to see ourselves as something to be exploited. As such, we exploit ourselves, bringing only suffering into our lives. Needless. We try to become the best version of ourselves only so that we can achieve a better job, a better way of making money. But in the end, it's the corporation, your employer, that benefits the most of this self-exploitation, of this self-torture that you're inflicting on yourself. We've started to live and we've shifted society into this unconscious controlling in our society, avoiding this unconscious control that I've talked about earlier, control exerted by companies and governments through many things such as social media, requires more than just thinking. I'm back. So, in the last video, I talked about how Byung-Chul, the philosopher, described our society as one that has moved from a disciplinary society onto a achievement society. I explained how the focus in this new society is more on positive power rather than negative power. Now, I already mentioned social media and the algorithm in that video as well, and I will dive more into the contemporary measures taken to make sure that people believe in this idea of being an entrepreneur, and also hopefully some suggestions on how to counter these measures. Now, it's important that we first start talking about this toxic thing that is the internet. Now, in the internet, we have a very high focus on transparency. We believe that everybody should be transparent, everybody should share whatever information they have about themselves, especially famous people, especially politicians, actors, you name it. We expect them to be transparent and to be honest. What Byung-Chul says is that this resembles very much the ideas that Jeremy Bentham had for the ideal prison called the panopticon. That is not a made-up word. That's not something I've just spit out for the sake of mumbling something. No, panopticon is an actual concept, and it drives around this. Imagine a cylindrical prison, a perfect circle in which all the inmates can see each other. Now, Bentham believes that if you have a prison working in this system, you have no need for actual prison guards to do the disciplining. You have no need for them to punish the prisoners. Because if you make everything public, that's also actions done by the prisoners, disciplinary measures taken against the prisoners, and the punishments they've received, Bentham believed that the prisoners eventually would start correcting each other. Han believes that this is exactly the situation we find ourselves in on social media. The constant need for got a hair in my mouth. On the internet, the constant need of being transparent, the constant need of sharing everything is exactly the same as a prison in which the inmates know everything that there is to know about each other. And as such, on the internet as well, you're expected to behave. You're taught what is right and wrong. And as you're all very familiar probably, this works in a very black and white way. It's very either you're this or you're that. Either you're wrong or you're false. And this goes beyond just cancel culture. This is something that you find present in all of the internet. And it's essentially this panopticon, it's this judging of each other and what is right to do and what is wrong to do. Now, of course, this doesn't just happen, because if this was the only thing, then it would be easy to change our behavior and then all would be good. But no, social media companies have perfected, essentially really, and you can't help but admire it, that they've perfected an algorithm in which this judgment works perfectly. Through the internet, these companies have been able to build a perfect image of who you are. And sometimes these companies know even more about you than yourself. They combine these huge amounts of data on you and combine them into essentially one image of you. And it's possible that this is even more aware of who you are than you yourself, because through data, they can actually track your behaviors. They can track your unconscious shopping sprees, your interests, the advertisements you watch, the YouTube video you watch, like this one. Sometimes, I don't know if that's actually true, but you know the argument, right? You're talking about something, you're saying to your mother, oh, I really need to buy a new barbecue. And then all of a sudden, you get all these ads for barbecues. And then you ask yourself, how is it possible? How does it know this about me? And that's data. That's this compiling of data into one image that knows you better than yourself. Now, Han describes how this has happened before. Hysteria, this excitement about data was the exact same response to statistics in the 18th century. Han describes how enlightenment of statistics is nowadays present in data. Similarly, the hype surrounding data is exactly the same as we found during the age of statistics. Data companies believe that with the data, they can predict human directions, they can predict the future. But as Han also compares, he says that statistics didn't do that. It claimed to be able to predict the future, but it never truly did. In fact, what happened was that once people as a whole became aware of this phenomenon and aware of this true nature of statistics, and especially the inhuman nature of statistics, the reducing people down into pure numbers and how it's void of any emotion, any passion. It's precisely the thing that sparked the Romanticism. Romanticism was an uprising against the scientific belief that we should get rid of the human in everything. Essentially, data is the exact same thing, but more extensive. In the end, it also tries to get rid of the human. It tries to get rid of all scientific disciplinaries concerning the human. Think of psychology. And this is what makes data wrong. Through data and through the obsession around it, we lose what it means to be human. Now, it hasn't come this far yet, but it's certainly leading in that direction, especially now with the rise of AI, because what AI essentially is an algorithm based on huge piles of data. This collection of data isn't done for the sake of the human race. It's very easy to say what it's done for: profit. It's done for exploitation, and it's done for turning more humans into dollar signs. Of course, it's not that black and white, as I said before, but it does eventually, through huge amounts of arguments, and for those arguments, I recommend checking out this book. It does come down to that. So when they've piled these huge amounts of data and all these collection of people, what some companies, especially in the US, actually do is they sell these data packages to government agencies, which then again use this information to kind of provide you with the content, provide you with an algorithm that is exactly what you're looking for. And that's how, in a pretty unethical way, you can actually steer politics, because through data you unconsciously steer the direction of people's thought. And this is once again made possible because of our obsession with ourselves and our obsession of turning ourselves into a project. Luckily, Han believes there to be an antidote. He stresses the importance of the idiot, of being stupid. Not in an intelligent sense, like not being ignorant, but going against the norm, being a fool, essentially. And we've seen many people in history who were this. Think of nearly all philosophers. I mean, almost everybody during their time called them fools, called them idiots, and said, what are you going on about? This has nothing to do with life. And Han says, be that idiot. Don't follow the norm. Don't follow the predictions made by data. Don't act in a pattern, but be unpredictable. Data doesn't predict the future. It makes an estimate. It's always up to us whether we follow that estimate or whether we actually don't. And it's easy to see that all throughout history, the history that we actually write about is about people not following the general direction, is about people precisely doing that, being the idiot. Of course, I get that not everybody wants to be the idiot. Of course, I don't expect everybody to be an idiot and start a revolution. In fact, Han argues that it's quite nearly impossible to start a revolution precisely because we have lost the sense of a collective. We have, through focusing on ourselves so much, we have lost this unity that was once enough to inspire us to sacrifice ourselves for a greater good in the most extreme sense. So no, I don't expect people to start a revolution, and that's not what I expect of you either. But there are a select few of you out there who are prepared to be the idiot. And of the others, I simply ask, don't talk them down. Let them be. Let them be different. Because this is precisely what we need in an age which is more and more dominated by inhumane things such as AI in a certain sense and data. Be appreciative of people trying to be different. But something that we are all capable of doing, and a lot easier than just being an idiot, is not feeding the algorithm. Don't give it anything. If you don't give it any data to begin with, it can't predict anything. It can't estimate anything. You can do this in numerous ways. One of the best ways is go to YouTube, go to the settings and turn off video recommendations, but you also very simply by just not accepting cookies. Now, of course, I can already hear the argument of, I like my algorithm. I like the fact that the internet shows me exactly what I want to see. And sure, I get it. It makes your life easy, but especially keeping the previous video in mind, it's not really life. It's if you're constantly sucked into this phone, sucked into these social media apps through a perfect algorithm that predicts exactly what you want to see next and basically makes it impossible to leave, you waste your life. You just spend your entire life watching these videos for probably no enjoyment, or at least not all the time of it. Now, of course, don't limit yourselves. I watch YouTube. I'm not saying that you shouldn't. I mean, please keep watching. Be moderate. Set limits for yourselves, and stopping an algorithm makes it a lot less addictive. And aside from that, it also frees you in a minor way, but it still counts. It frees you from this huge pile of data being built around you and these companies trying to steer your emotions and your needs and your desires. It gives you a bit more freedom, which you can then once again spend on things that you do for the joy of it. So yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about. If you're up for a challenge, or if you've studied philosophy or read philosophical works before, I definitely recommend reading the entire book. It's a short book because Byung-Chul Han is a man of short words, but it's a very good book. I definitely recommend it. A lot of information and a lot of good takeaways that I wasn't at all capable of covering in these two videos. But yeah, that's all I had to say for now. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I have some interesting stuff coming up for the next videos. They won't be video essays, so definitely stay tuned for that one. Leave a like, subscribe, comment, I guess. Let me know what you want to see next. Let me know if you have any books that you would like to discuss next. And yeah, see ya.